Hey everyone, I know this took me like 2 months to get to, but I'm finally read Book Full of A Song of Ice and Fire or Feast of Crows. And if you want to see my videos on the full three novels, then the link is above. Now, a lot of people like saying this is the worst novel out of the five, and like it's hard to even think of it like that. I mean, like they're all so good. So maybe this one's like tied with the Dance with Dragons, but I don't like to say the worst. I just like to say like my least favorite because I think they're all great novels. So let's get started. Like the last three novels, I'm gonna go character by character, so this video is a lot more organized and it's not just me like rambling on for half an hour straight. So let's start off with the prologue. We meet Pate, who's a young apprentice at the Old Town Citadel, which Sam goes to later in the story. And he's training to become a member of this like scholar people in the called Maesters. We've met many Maesters throughout the series so far. We've met Maester Lewin, Maester Crescent, Maester Alwyn, a lot of Maesters. So finally get to see how one becomes a Maester. And eventually, in this chapter, he steals this key, and the key leads to this like library of books and records. Somebody pays him to steal this key for them. And he turns over the stolen key, and he gets a gold coin for return. So he's not a good maester. He's not a good maester. But he kind of gets what's coming to him because he bites down on the gold coin to see if it's real gold, and he like dies immediately because the coin is poisoned. Now, I think it's obvious from the text that he was killed by Jaqen H'ghal because I like just the way he was described, kind of not really like having a face, kind of like the same way Arya described him in book two, and makes me wonder like why did he want this key and why did he kill the guy? Probably to like stop the tracing to H'ghal, so they can't really trace the key to him. But why does H'ghal want the key to the books and records? Now, like I said, it's not confirmed that it's Jaqen H'ghal, but I'm just gonna guess that it is. So moving on to the book proper, let's start with Sulzi. So Sulzi has the most amount of chapters in this book, which is kind of interesting because he had no chapters, point of view chapters, I mean, in the first three books. So he was very an interesting character in the first three books, but I think this is the one where he really starts to show whole true personality and her weaknesses. So, whole plotline begins immediately after the death of Tywin Lannister. And, like, Queen Cersei's reign is marked by rampant cronyism. You know, her council is a bunch of useless yes men who don't really contribute much, and she needs people to, like, actually help her. And also, Tywin's death kind of destroyed her, and she hates Tyrion even more now. She thinks he's like a demon monkey, and she's always like afraid he's gonna kill her. She's very paranoid. It's pretty messed up. So the kingdom needs a new hand, and she asks both Kevin Lannister and her brother Jaime, but neither of them say yes because she doesn't really listen to either of them's advice. Plus, Jaime's kind of mad at her based on what happened at the end of book three, and that really offends her. And on top of that, Cersei has to deal with the Tyrells, who she doesn't trust, but she needs to make an alliance to them. And King Tommen is engaged to marry Margaery, and Cersei is very weary of this lady, even though Margaery really hasn't done anything wrong at this point. But this is all because when Cersei was a little girl, we find out that her and her friend saw this like witch who made a prophecy, and she told Cersei that when she's older, she's gonna be queen for a little bit before like some young, more beautiful, elegant lady takes over and she becomes the queen. So Cersei has this whole like Macbeth thing going on. And she's convinced it's a real prophecy because what the witch told to her friend was like, "You're gonna die soon," and then her friend fell down a well like the very next day. So this means that, like, Solzy thinks it's real. And she's worried that Marjorie's just gonna sweep in and take the crown and take the family, kind of take over Solzy's space. And, she's really upset about that, understandably. Something I like about this book is that, like, Solzy's definitely a bad person. We could kind of see where she's coming from, you know? I could relate. Not really, but you know what I mean. And the kingdom's being managed very poorly financially, so they keep having to take debts out of both the Iron Bank of Bravos and the Faith of the Seven, which is this, like, strange religious cult, kind of. And she defaults the debt owed to the Iron Bank, and the bank's financial retaliation nearly cripples the economy of Westeros. It's really bad. It's like 2008 all over again. Except this book was made in 2005, so, like, George predicted it. And to settle the crown's debts to the faith, the religious cult, she permits the restoration of the religion's military order, which is, like, called the Faith Militant, and she pretty much alms a bunch of priests. And that's never really a good idea. I think, separation of church and state has worked well in America, so maybe she should not try that here. And back to the Marjorie thing, she's still worried that Marjorie's gonna, like, convince Tommen to do something and ruin everything for her. So she tries to frame Marjorie and have it make it seem like Marjorie was cheating on Tommen with somebody else. It's getting real soap opera in this plot line. But this backfires. Because the religious leadership imprisoned Solzy for adultery, but also, like, fucking her brother, which is kind of messed up, like, incest is terrible. So Solzy definitely got what's coming for her. And she pretty much ends whole chapters by writing a note to Jaime and says, "Please, brother, boyfriend, save me. I love you, brother, boyfriend." And, that doesn't end well. So, speaking of Jaime, towards the beginning of this book, Solzy dispatches Jaime to the Riverlands to kind of kill the rest of Robb Stark's rebellion and kind of try to, like, make peace and be like, yeah, we're the leaders now. And the reason she sends them on this quest is because she's offended that he didn't take her hand to the king job. So she kind of got mad at him. She's like, okay, go to this other country, I hate you, So he meets Robb's great uncle, Brendan Blackfist Tully, who's a pretty cool character, by the way. And he convinces him to surrender the castle of Riverrun in exchange for Edmure's life. And, the siege ends bloodlessly. Like, nobody gets hurt. It's all a neat deal, but Brendan escapes. And we don't really know where he goes, because he's not a POV character. And I don't think he's a POV character in the next one, if I remember correctly. And, yeah, so it goes well, it doesn't go well. So for Jaime. But he has a lot of good character development in this book. I feel like he's, like, a true hero now, because he really does not want to kill the Starks or the Tullys. He's explained that to Catelyn Stark. He's like, sorry, Solzy, that I really want to keep my promise, because he wants to keep some of his honor. And at the end of the book, for him, he gets that letter that Solzy wrote, like, please, brother boyfriend, save me. And he's like, nah, you kind of suck. So he doesn't do the trial by combat. He just kind of ignores the letter, and he's like, don't send her a response, it's fine. I mean, I'm kind of on his side doing this. He is a bad person, so I don't blame him, But it is your sister boyfriend, so I don't know. I mean, your sister girlfriend. So I don't know. Very morally great characters here. Moving on to MVP of the Feast of Crows, Brienne of Tarth. Her quest to find Sansa and possibly Arya makes her travel all over the Riverlands, though somehow she doesn't interact with Jaime. I kind of wish we saw that, but anyway. She sees a lot of devastation and a lot of sad, upset people that the war has caused, between Robb Stark and the Freys and all that stuff that happened in books 2 and 3. And along the way, he meets Podrick Payne, who was Tyrion's squire, of course, in books 1, 2, and 3. And he wants to help her to find Sansa because he doesn't really have anything else going on, apparently. And he also meets Sir Hyle Hunt, who is like this knight, and he kind of mocks her for being ugly, and it's kind of rude, but at least he's trying to help, so he's making slow character development. And she learns from Gendry, she also meets Gendry, she learns that Arya survived the whole King's Landing thing in Book 1, and she escaped. And she also learns that the Hound is dead, but somebody's been wearing his helmet, and they massacred the Salt Pans town. Who could it be? And later, she gets into this fight, and she's like very injured, and she kind of gets like stabbed, I think. But like she's like taken captive by the Brotherhood without banners, which to me sounds like the Doctors Without Borders. I don't know. It just clicks in my head whenever I read Brotherhood Without Banners. And they were like once devoted to protecting people in the Riverlands. But now they're commanded by, wait for it, Catelyn Stark. But she's now known as Lady Stoneheart. And that's something I wish they kept in the TV show because it's such an interesting plot point, and it really continues on Catelyn's character arc. Because once he dies, fake dies, at the end of A Storm of Swords, she's broken. Her heart is completely cold. And I just think this is a natural progression to her character. I don't know why they didn't do that in A Feast for Crows. Michelle Fairley said she would have done it if asked, but she wasn't asked. So, Lady Stoneheart, she has none of like the compassion or empathy that Catelyn did, even though Catelyn wasn't that nice of a person to begin with. And she just wants to kill all Lannisters and kill all the Freys, even though there's some good Lannisters and some good Freys. And she sees Brienne's sword, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're with the Lannisters now! Kill her!" But then Brienne's like, "No, I've always been loyal to you, my lady." And evil Catelyn's like, "I'll spare you if you kill Jaime." Now, okay, that's not really what it sounds like. She just has like this really gravelly voice that's hard to understand. And I don't know how to do that voice, but. So she wants Brienne to go and get Jaime and bring her back to the river one to kill Jaime to prove her loyalty. And this hasn't happened yet, and it's gonna happen in Winds of Winter. So it's been like 16 years since this plot started. Wonder if that one's ever gonna get solved. I don't know. Anyway, Brienne is my favorite character in this book. I like how she finally gets point of view chapters because she's really brave and skilled, but she really has low self-esteem, which is her main weakness. So she's a very complex character, but I like her a lot. I like how she's kind of worried about how she looks, and she thinks she's ugly because people throughout her life have told her she's ugly. So that's her main weakness, but other than that, she is a very like strong, courageous character, something that I feel like a lot of people could look up to. So yeah, she's my favorite in this book. Moving on to Sansa, who goes by Elaine in this book. And it's funny because at the beginning, whole chapters are called Sansa, but then later in the book, they're called Elaine. Kind of shows that Sansa is becoming Elaine, not just like externally, but internally as well. And Elaine, the fake character she's playing, is Littlefinger's bastard daughter. And it's kind of funny because he made fun of Jon Snow for being a bastard in book one, but here she is pretending to be a bastard. So, she kind of gets comeuppance for that. And she becomes friends with Robert Arryn, the most manly book in these books. Yeah, no, he's a mess. He's a complete mess. And meanwhile, she's kind of managing the household, dealing with him and his outbursts, and Littlefinger's kind of giving her some like guidance on politics. She's kind of like his tutor. And Littlefinger, throughout these chapters, is kind of like manipulating Robert Arryn and his bannermen because he wants to be Lord Protector of the Vale. So they're making so like he doesn't marry again just so he could stay with this. And he eventually reveals that he wants to marry Sansa to Harold Hardyng, who is the next heir in line to the Vale. Because he's planning on Robert Arryn dying. Because he's kind of sickly, he's very weak, and he's kind of annoying anyway, so like if he dies, I don't think anybody's gonna care that much. And Littlefinger, when that happens, he wants to reveal to everybody that Elaine is actually Sansa, and they're gonna claim Winterfell in her name. I think this was a much better plan than his plan in the TV show we're not gonna talk about, because he marries her off to Ramsay, and it made no like logistical sense on his part. Why would he want to like send her across to some random guy? Like it made no sense in the series. I hate that part of the series, as with many other parts of the series. But like this one makes more sense because Littlefinger's always gonna be there, and he knows that, so that's why he's doing it. It's very smart. Littlefinger in the books is so much more like he's so much smarter in the books than he is in the TV, so he's much more smooth, I think. Anyway. Okay, so this part of the video, I'm going to be talking about all the Greyjoys, meaning Aeron, Victarion, and Asha, because they have so few chapters in this book that I just thought it'd be easy to combine them into one. So, on the Iron Islands, where the Greyjoys live, the late Balon Greyjoy's eldest surviving brother, Euron, by the way, much cooler in these books than he is in the show, like I said, he comes back to exile and he's going to reclaim the throne. But Aeron doesn't want this. He's his younger brother, who's a priest, and he wants the King's Moot to elect a successor instead of having Euron. These names are very similar to each other, sorry. So, Euron's claim is contested by his brother Aeron and his other younger brother Victarion, and Balon's daughter Asha, who is Theon's sister. And basically, Euron is chosen as king because he promises to conquer Westeros and, like, control Daenerys' dragons with this magical horn he has. So I don't know how that's going to work out for him. I wish him the best, but I don't see that one working out that well. So Euron's the king now, and the Iron Fleet attacks the Reach, which kind of threatens House Tyrell's seat at the Highgarden. And Euron sends Victarion east to marry Daenerys on his behalf. Well, like, tell Daenerys that Euron wants to marry her. And that means that Euron gets a claim to the Iron Throne. But Victarion's like, I don't know, I like this dragon lady. Emilia Clarke's pretty cute. So he wants to woo her for himself instead, which is kind of weird, because in the books he's like 15. But so was Khal Drogo was like really old too. So these books are so wrong in so many ways. Like, I forget about that until I realize, like, wait a minute. Daenerys is a teenager and she has all these lovers. Like, it's really messed up. I don't know. So this part of the book I'm going to be talking about all the chapters that take place in Dorne. So basically, Areo Hotep, Alys Occult, and Alien Motel. Because they only have like 1 or 2 chapters each, so I thought it'd just be easier to group them in together, because the chapters kind of slide into each other. So, Prince Doran Motel is confronted by 3 of the Sand Snakes, who are a group of girls who are Oberyn's bastard daughters. Oberyn, of course, was the guy from Book 3 who fought the Mountain over Tyrion's behalf, but he got a little too arrogant and the Mountain was able to kill him. So his daughters want revenge for the death of their father, of course, and they're kind of starting to incite the common folk to riot and join their side. So Doran gets a little paranoid and he sends his guard Ariohota to arrest them and put them in his palace. So Ariane Martell wants to crown Tommen's sister, Myrcella, aka Cersei's daughter, as Queen of Westeros, to kind of like slither her way into being Hand of the Queen. But it's kind of thwarted, and there's this whole big like massive confusion, panic, craziness. I wish it was done in the series, and one of Ariane's co-conspirators, Darkstar, he tries to kill Myrcella, and he disfigures her face, so she looks all like ugly now and deformed. And Aelys Urquhart, who's Myrcella's guardian, is killed by Ariohota. So he didn't last long. I'd say like he's a POV character that kind of just forms the function of a prologue character because he dies immediately. And all this mess kind of strains Dorne's new alliance with the Iron Throne. And Dorne kind of tells his daughter that he has something bigger in mind. He has like a big plan to bring down the Lannisters. And he's going to send his brother Quentyn to make an alliance with Daenerys and probably marry Daenerys. Same with the Greyjoy is doing to bring down the House of Lannister. So hopefully that ends well with him. Moving on to my least favorite character in these entire books, Sam. Oh God. So the Night's Watch has ordered Sam Tarly to sail to the Citadel of Old Town, and he wants to become a maester and warn the Seven Kingdoms about the return of the Elders, which kind of seen throughout the first three books. And Sam travels with Maester Aemon, who's like 100 years old, and Gilly, who's Sam's like fuck buddy, I guess. And Gilly has a newborn baby, though Sam kind of figures out that the baby isn't Gilly's baby, it's Mance Raider's baby, and Jon swapped them with Gilly's son to kind of keep Mance Raider's baby safe. And okay, so they get stranded in Bravos, and because Aemon becomes sick and he dies, but like Aemon dies before saying that Daenerys has these dragons and she's gonna fulfill the prophecy, and Sam has to go help her, and then he's like, then he just dies. He's like, ew. So everybody leaves for Bravos, and Aemon, yeah, he's dead. Um, but yeah, no, I just hate Sam. He's just bitching the whole time about how weak he is and how nobody likes him, even though he did have sex with Gilly. Poor Gilly, honestly. I just don't like him because like all he does is bitch and moan the whole time. I hated him in books 1, 2, and 3. I hate him now. I hate him in the TV show. I hate all versions of Sam. Moving on to one of my favorite characters, Arya. And she arrives in Bravos, and she finds her way into this, like, faceless men group. They're these assassins who steal the faces of their victims. It's really interesting and fucked up, but it also interesting. So Arya joins them, and the faceless men kind of tell her to stop being Arya Stark because he's no one now, and just kind of forget about being Arya, join the faceless men, kind of just get rid of your identity. But I guess he's so strong-willed that she can't let go of her identity, and we kind of see that because he has a lot of dreams about her being a wolf. Of course, wolf is like being a Stark. All the Stark children have wolf dreams. So anyway, Arya meets Sam in this book because they're both in Bravos. Poor Arya, I know. And she finds the guy who abandoned Sam when, like, a Night's Watch member who kind of ran away from the Night's Watch. So Arya finds him and she kills him because he deserted the Night's Watch, and I guess Arya's like Team Stark for life. But the Faceless Men find out about this, so they kind of like get rid of her eyesight through this drug they use. They make her blind. And, we'll see what happens next book. Also, her alias while going through Bravos is Cat, which is probably named after her mother, Catelyn Stark. So at the end of the novel, Sam arrives at the Citadel, and I hate how Sam's the last chapter because that's my last memory of this book. Anyway, he's at the Citadel, and he meets Altmeister Marwyn. I feel like that's how you pronounce his name. And Marwyn learns about Aemon's death, and the dragon prophecy, and Daenerys' dragons, all of that. Marwyn decides to find Daenerys himself. So this book ends with like three different people searching for Daenerys. Two of them want to marry her, I think. And Sam meets another apprentice who introduces himself as Pate. Now wait a minute. Wasn't the guy at the beginning of the book named Pate? Are these the two different Pates? Probably because the first Pate died. I'm just saying, I think it's interesting how this book came full circle in the end, Started with a Pate, ends with a Pate. So, what did I think of this book? Well, I thought it was a great book. It was amazing. Everybody seems to not like this book on the internet because it doesn't have Daenerys or Tyrion or Jon, but I thought it was good. I thought they made use for what they had. Would I have preferred if they made A Feast for Crows and The Dance of Dragon one long book? Yes. I think that would have been better. Maybe George could have waited until 2011 and released it as like a 2-volume epic, but I'm fine with how it is, because both parts are already out. It's not like I had to wait 6 years to read A Dance with Dragons. That would have been bad. But yeah, I like this book for what it was. I kind of wish that, like, the Greyjoys or the Martells or Arianne would get more screen time, or any screen time at all in the case of Arianne, because, like, that could have padded out the TV so far, though, and they wouldn't have to scramble for ideas towards the end. Like, I just think that has like the use for at least like 3 or 4 episodes. You could have used that instead of ending it early and making up your own crap. But anyway, enough about the TV show. I thought this book was a very good book. Um, Now I feel like people who read it when it came out and they weren't expecting to not have Tyrion or Jon or Daenerys in it were a little bit disappointed. So that's probably why this book gets a lot of hate. But like knowing that you're gonna see them in the next book makes it better because the next book's already out. Now, of course, The Winds of Winter isn't out, and when it does come out, I'm going to be making a video about that book, like, every day, but it's probably not going to come out, because George is in his 70s, and he's always been saying, I'm almost done with it for years, and it's never going to be done, because he's going to die soon. And even if this book does come out, A Dance of Dragons is not going to come out, because there's no way he's going to write another book after this, because he's been writing this one for, like, 10 years. And I don't see George lasting another 10 years on this planet, unfortunately. He's human. So anyway, back to the book. I thought it was a great book. Let me know what you thought of this book down in the comments. I'm going to give this a B. My favorite parts were the Brienne storyline, and also the Sansa storyline were very interesting to me. And Arya, and the Greyjoys. I pretty much liked all of it, except for Sam. He kind of sucked. But yeah. I hope everybody out there has a nice day, and stay safe, and peace.